Hey everyone, my name is Carl, and today I'm just going to be presenting a little bit about my workflow, just to kind of validate my all the time I've been spending on actually making this, desktop mine and having a lot of more efficiency through it. So anyway, um, I am going to mainly present just four tools that I use a lot. I'm going to be presenting NeoVim, Tmux, Fish, and just Firefox. Um, and these are tools that I use every day, and I really can't live without them. And I think that if you really just see my kind of workflow, or you see someone else using their workflow, you kind of realize why so many people spend so much time doing this. In either case, let me just start. So I'm just going to start my VimRC, and I'm just going to show you a real life example of me kind of using um, NeoVim for one of my Rust projects. So my friends and I have recently been starting to implement a Rust IRC server. And the reason why, because we were bored and we wanted to do this. So ultimately, what we decided to do, well, was to start. But with, you know, making something like a established piece of software like an IRC server, we obviously needed to have a lot of tests. Um, so if we look at this repo, which is right here, if you want to see it, um, then and we just kind of start looking at it. This is a Rust a code base. So obviously we can start doing tests here. And what you start to see is I have a lot of tools integrated for my Rust development. Specifically, I use what we call language server protocol with NeoVim CLC, and I know that NeoVim has a built-in language server. I just haven't gotten around to uh, working on it, like trying it out, to be honest. But in either case, I use NeoVim just because for me it's so essential that I do everything on the keyboard. So talking about this, I will enable my keyboard casting just to make sure that it is there. And you can see my keyboard now. Um, but you know what's so nice about my setup is that basically um, everything just relies on the keyboard. So if I have something like this, um, I can create a little snippet that would just give me one of my tests. So as I said, I just kind of want to show you uh, basically what I do and how I do it. So the cool thing about how a language modern language servers or protocols or language modern text editors is that essentially you get all the benefits from all those crazy new modern text editors like VS Code, Atom, which is getting deprecated, but still, and Sublime. And now we can just embed it inside NeoVim. And here I'm just going to be creating a simple test um, because uh, this test is going to be obviously wrong. And what I wanted to do is just show you that this is going to work. So if we create a vector that just has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, um, I'm getting all these really cool things because I basically set up my configuration to do a lot for me, so I can just type less and focus more on coding. What you specifically see is type hints provided by the Rust language server, Rust analyzer, and then you kind of see some what we call virtual text, which is like basically suggestions, and those are provided by GitHub Copilot, which is actually integrated into NeoVim. I'm just basically trying these tools out to see if they actually fit my workflow. I'm a bit concerned about, Copilot, but that's another story. In either case, um, sometimes we want to do something like like, debug a test or something like that. And what's cool is that even though, people think of Vim or slash NeoVim as an old text editor, in reality, there's a lot more we can do. So let's write, something kind of silly. But basically, we want to iterate through this array and check if there's any element that is equal to 6. And let's assign this has 6. Um, and obviously, if we assert this, this should be false. And this should be false because none of the elements here are, have, and none of the elements are equal to 6. Cool thing is, because I kind of set up my text header such in a way, I can start debugging this. And I'm not going to go throughout the whole process, but I do want to just show you that this is possible. So I have two keep apps set, basically, comma db, which sets out breakpoints, and you can kind of see them here. And now we can just press debug, and my tool called Vimspector will open up, and I can start debugging. And this is really cool. Again, I am not going to go through this whole thing because I just wanted to show you that it works. And that's that. So, for those concerns about like debugging, there it is. Another cool thing is that because my texter is so integrated in my system, I basically, can run my tests inside my terminal, such as this, which is really nice, being able to do that and having all your system just built in one thing with keyboard remappings. That's always nice. So I am gonna delete this because, that has already served its purpose. And then I wanted to show you some other cool thing, which is, I guess part of I've been learning with GitHub Copilot. And this is honestly one of the better use cases. In all honesty, when I'm writing Rust code, I really like to turn off Copilot. And the reason for this is because a lot of what Copilot writes, it's not great, to say the least. It's not ideal, and I will write it some other way. I put it there because I leave it on because sometimes, I can get some boilerplate done really quickly. And this is kind of an example of the boilerplate that I'm going to talk about. So with with something like, like IRC clients, you're gonna have to have, a lot of tests. So luckily, I found this really cool repository called Parser Test. It just has a bunch of tests um, that will be used to test our group's implementation of an IRC parser. Um, but the thing is, it's written in YAML. And originally, this was provided through some sort of Python integration, Python Go integration, where you just basically, you're supposed to set up your parser to make some output, and it would test it that way. I kind of, with Rust is kind of test driven, and in that regard, I really wanted to make everything kind of native to Rust since we were rebuilding a IRC server from scratch. So I decided to basically pour all these tests into a Rust kind of way. So, and it turns out this is honestly one of the best cases for like, GitHub Copilot. Because I can now do something like this. I can basically just wait until GitHub Copilot like parses through that YAML. And basically I grab all the tests here and I comment them out. And then GitHub Copilot was able to parse all this out, and it basically caught all the tests, like everything I was gonna do, rewriting this, such as in one simple goal. So again, this is just, showing you what can be done. Another cool integration I added was basically, if you have ever worked with Dart, the Dart programming language, you see that sometimes you have uh, like some sort of way to tell you what context you're in. And with Rust, for like with NeoVim, you kind of have this extension using an extension called tree sitter that allows you to just kind of have the context. And this works really well with large code bases, where you just have long like functions, such things like that. Another thing that I really like is the fact that sometimes if hypothetically I had this function, let me find a function that has some parameters, or let me just make a function. Actually, this is perfect. I added, sometimes we do want to document our code, so I have like a combo provided by this extension called NeoGen, that allows me to basically generate comment strings keyboard shortcut. And that was really useful, I found out. And then finally, some of you guys might be asking about how to navigate some code. And the way I do that is using something called Telescope. And I customized basically Telescope to just let me able to like see some file, like the file preview and also the file name, and then I can just search for whatever file I want. And that is pretty cool, if I don't say so myself. Um, and and I have a lot of things more with, that uses Telescope. Sometimes I just like to read through the manuals of whatever plugin I'm using. So, for instance, if I am looking at a another plugin called Fugitive, I kind of do want to look at the commands, such things like that. So I use Telescope for a lot of things. And then finally, for my ultimate, I guess I would call it ultimate Vim configuration, I have this thing called Toggle Term. It's called a plugin that basically lets me have um, a persistent terminal over my system. And what is really cool is that using Toggle Term, you can basically embed other terminal applications inside Vim. So one of the cool I guess applications, or these things I use, is called LazyGit, and I have a keyboard shortcut, comma LG, that basically allows me to um, see what files I changed in my repository and add them quickly. So in this case, I am just going to add this. It's going to make a really bad commit message. Added like debugger config or vim. And then finally, now, we're good, all good and handy. So that's that. And ultimately, all these commands, really, really just make my life easier. And everything just works out really well. And but before I move on to the next two, I do want to show you that I had another awesome feature that I would like everyone to maybe potentially use if you're still in this NeoVim/Vim grind, which is the quick fix list. So I have a plugin called grepper, and what basically grepper allows me to look is basically search through my whole repository to search for specific terms. And then it allows me to basically put these terms into my quick fix list. So I think it's better for me to just show you. So I have another plugin, comma GS, comma FS, that allows me to, that just gives me kind of a prompt. And then with this prompt, I can just search whatever I want. In this case, I'm going to search for asserts. And then what happens is now this grepper plugin puts all the lines where a cert appeared into my quick fix list. And what's really nice is then I can use another plugin. This plugin is been NeovIm BQF, which stands for, I think, Better Quick Fix. That allows me to preview that line without moving my cursor. And then if I ever want to go to that specific line, I can just press enter, that. And again, because this is the quick fix list, I can just do whatever I expect, and then just do like see next, and see previous. So that's that, and that's kind of what I wanted to show with NeoVim. And then I don't know if you guys can see, but I'm also using something called Tmux, and Tmux is really great for me, just because I especially love being able to have all my projects in kind of one window and being able to know what's going on. So sometimes I just want to, look at two different Vim instances, such as this, with having the full screen in just a really nice fashion. And then Tmux allows me to do that. And what's really cool is that, basically because I can just switchly go back and forth with all my configurations, it just allows me to produce a fast, I guess a faster work environment than usually possible. Um, and what's usually cool is that sometimes you do like are able to have double tmux. In this case, I have this. I just logged into a remote server, and then what I like to do is basically um, you know, if I can, activate this new thing that I'm going to talk about, which is uh my, I guess the shell I'm using, which is fish. And this is kind of like the third tool that I really wanted to go more in depth in, because I've been just using fish this week, and before I use this shell called ZSH, which is the default in Mac. Um, but I recently switched to fish, and that was because I learned that it had just all the features that I wanted in CSH um, embedded or pre-installed. So with CSH, I had things such as auto completion and syntax highlighting, but with fish, I get them kind of off the bat. So for example, one of the things I was looking at was um, for example, rclone. And rclone has a lot of features, a lot of flags. And I cannot, sometimes I need a quick refresher. And having this tool that allows me to basically look at all these commands and in a nice fashion is so helpful. I basically set up my terminal and fish to be Vim centric, so everything kind of matches. So for instance, right, to look at I can just tab complete like you would expect, and I can just press my Vim keys to go through my tab selection, which is extremely nice. And then you have a lot of things such as sometimes you just want to just not write on the terminal. Um, so a cool thing there is that basically I have this keyboard shortcut that allows me to go to an actual buffer, um, and write my command here with all my configurations, and then once I quit, it saves it and actually runs that on my command prompt, which is extremely useful. And I think fish is just so cool. And of course, I'm just gonna show my NeoFetch because that's kind of what I have to. But the last thing I kind of wanted to show off was Firefox. Um, so Firefox is like whatever browser, you just need to be comfortable. And for me, I'm really comfortable using Firefox plus something called Duckduckgo, and specifically because I again set up just Vim configurations that allow me to just be on my keyboard and move fast. For example, you know, when sometimes you expect in Vim you can write something like uh, you can do something like Command D to go down, I guess half a page, half a Windows, and then like Control U to go half a page up, and then this kind of applies on my terminal. I mean my browser, and I love that. And so the extension I'm using is NeovIm, which is so fantastic. Um, but another thing is, sometimes, as a developer, we're gonna have to look at a lot of, documentation. And what a feature I absolutely love is something called Duckduckgo Banks. So, in case I was wondering, sometimes as a Rust developer, I really like to look at the documentation because it's so great. Um, so if I ever wanted, look at uh, the documentation for vector, I can just search up. I can just, I did that too fast, but I can just search up bang, Rust, and then Beck or VecQ, for example. And that did not work, but let me just do it again. The vector, and now I can, look at the documentation for vect. And what's really cool is that there's also like another bang called DRS that allows me to basically look at the documentation for a Rust crate or library. And it just fetches automatically the latest documentation of that, and that is so helpful. I basically use uh, this all the time with a lot more. Um, so yeah, those were basically everything I wanted to show, and hopefully you see how beneficial this is. I also have this other thing. No, since I'm a Mac OS I guess user now, I recently found out there's a extension called Hammer Arm, and basically Hammer Arm has this vim config that basically when I press command and then I guess semicolon, I go to this nice configuration which is really like vim mode, and now I can delete words. Just like it's, I really like having my Vim mode everywhere. And that is basically it. And hopefully you enjoyed that and just, got some really useful information out of that. My name is Carl Senior Mars, and peace out.